Have you ever noticed how your mind can turn a completely normal situation into something emotionally exhausting within minutes? Someone takes too long to reply, and suddenly you start wondering if they're upset with you. You think about a future event, and your brain immediately starts imagining everything that could go wrong. A small mistake becomes proof that you're failing. A simple uncertainty becomes a mental spiral that follows you for hours or even days. And the strange part is that most of the time, none of those imagined problems ever actually happen. So why does the mind do this? Why does the brain create stress, fear, and emotional tension around situations that aren't even real yet? The answer begins with understanding that your brain is not designed to make you peaceful. It's designed to keep you safe. And from an evolutionary perspective, safety often depended on anticipating problems before they happened. The humans who noticed potential danger early were more likely to survive. So over time, the brain evolved to constantly scan for threats, uncertainty, and possible negative outcomes. The problem is that your brain still uses that ancient survival system in a modern world where most threats are emotional, social, or psychological rather than physical. This means your mind often treats uncertainty as if it were danger. When something is unclear, unresolved, or unpredictable, your brain starts generating possibilities to close the gap. But because the brain has a negativity bias, it tends to focus more on what could go wrong than what could go right. That's why your thoughts naturally drift toward rejection, embarrassment, failure, conflict, or loss. Not because those outcomes are likely, but because your brain believes preparing for the worst increases your chances of staying safe. The difficult part is that the brain does not always distinguish between real danger and imagined danger as clearly as people think. If you vividly imagine something stressful, your body can begin responding as if the threat is already happening. Your heart rate changes, your muscles tense, your stress hormones rise, and suddenly a problem that exists only in your mind starts creating real emotional and physical reactions. This is why overthinking can feel so exhausting. Your body is reacting to scenarios that may never happen. One of the most interesting things about this pattern is that the mind often creates problems during moments of uncertainty or lack of control. Think about how quiet moments can suddenly become filled with intrusive thoughts. You're lying in bed at night, nothing is happening, and suddenly your brain starts replaying awkward memories, imagining future failures, or questioning decisions you made years ago. It's almost as if the mind cannot tolerate empty space without filling it with something to solve. Part of this happens because the brain associates certainty with safety. Even a negative explanation can feel emotionally easier to process than uncertainty. This is why people sometimes jump to conclusions or assume the worst even without evidence. The mind would rather create a painful explanation than sit in the discomfort of not knowing. Uncertainty leaves the story unfinished, and the brain hates unfinished stories. This is also why anxiety often feels like a constant search for hidden problems. The anxious mind becomes hyper-alert, scanning conversations, behaviors, tone changes, and small details for signs that something might be wrong. A delayed message feels significant. A short response feels personal. A small mistake feels catastrophic. And because the brain is looking for danger, it starts interpreting neutral situations through a negative filter. The more attention you give these imagined problems, the more convincing they begin to feel. Another reason the mind creates problems is because of emotional conditioning from past experiences. If someone has experienced rejection, criticism, betrayal, or emotional instability before, the brain learns to anticipate similar pain in the future. It begins trying to predict emotional threats before they happen. In other words, the mind starts creating hypothetical problems as a form of self-protection. The logic behind it is simple. If I expect disappointment, maybe it won't hurt as much. But in reality, this constant anticipation creates suffering long before anything actually happens. What makes this even more difficult is that the brain rewards problem-solving behavior. When you analyze situations repeatedly, your mind feels like it is doing something productive. It feels like preparation, awareness, or control. But many times, it is just mental rehearsal of fear. The brain creates the illusion that if you think long enough, you can prevent discomfort completely. But because uncertainty can never be eliminated entirely, the thinking never fully stops. This creates a cycle where imagined problems generate anxiety. Anxiety increases mental scanning, and mental scanning creates even more imagined problems. Over time, the person may begin living more in anticipated realities than actual reality. They become emotionally affected by events that haven't haven't happened, conversations that never occurred, and judgments nobody actually made. Social media and modern life intensify this pattern even more. Constant exposure to other people's lives gives the brain endless material for comparison, insecurity, and imagined inadequacy. You see someone succeeding, and your mind quietly creates a problem about your own progress. You see people socializing, and suddenly your brain questions your own relationships. The modern mind is overloaded with stimulation, comparison, and information, and under that pressure, it becomes even more reactive to uncertainty. There's also a deeper emotional layer beneath all of this. Many imagined problems are not really about the situation itself. They are about fear of emotional pain, fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of being misunderstood, abandoned, embarrassed, or not being enough. The brain creates hypothetical problems because it is trying to prepare emotionally for experiences it desperately wants to avoid. But here is the paradox. In trying to protect you from future pain, the mind often creates pain in the present. You suffer emotionally over things that never happen. You carry stress about outcomes that never arrive. You replay situations that no longer exist. And slowly, the imagined world inside your head starts affecting your real quality of life. One of the biggest turning points is realizing that not every thought deserves trust simply because it feels convincing. The mind is a prediction machine, not a truth machine. It constantly generates interpretations, possibilities, and imagined scenarios, many of which are influenced more by fear than reality. And when you begin observing your thoughts instead of automatically believing them, you create psychological distance from the patterns controlling you. This does not mean ignoring problems or pretending everything is fine. Real awareness is important, but there is a difference between healthy awareness and compulsive mental threat creation. Healthy awareness helps you respond to reality. Anxiety pulls you into imagined realities that drain your energy without improving your life. One of the most powerful things you can do is learn to tolerate uncertainty without immediately trying to solve it mentally. This is difficult because the brain craves closure, but uncertainty itself is not dangerous. In fact, much of emotional peace comes from accepting that not every outcome can be predicted or controlled. The moment you stop demanding certainty from life, the mind slowly becomes less reactive. It also helps to recognize how often your thoughts are emotional predictions rather than objective facts. Just because your brain imagines rejection does not mean rejection is coming. Just because your mind creates a worst-case scenario does not mean it reflects reality. Thoughts are influenced by emotional state, past experiences, fear, and conditioning. They are not always accurate reflections of what is true. The truth is that your mind creates problems that don't exist because it believes anticipation equals protection. It believes that if it keeps scanning, predicting, and preparing, it can prevent pain before it happens. But many times, all it really does is trap you in cycles of fear about realities that never arrive. And once you understand that, you begin to realize something important. Peace does not come from solving every imagined problem. It comes from no longer treating every fearful thought as reality. If this video made you recognize these patterns in your own mind, take a moment to like it so more people can understand what anxiety and overthinking are really doing beneath the surface. Subscribe to the channel for more psychology-based insights about behavior, emotion, and the hidden mental patterns shaping everyday life. And in the comments, tell me this: what is one problem your mind created recently that never actually happened? Becoming aware of the pattern is often the first step to breaking it. I'll see you in the next video.